everyone. Jobs going begging. But not for people like him. He knows what employers think when they meet him face to face. He jerks about like a puppet, speaks in an odd way. That left hand doesn't look much good. And those legs. How can they be of any use like that? It's bad luck, but the fellow must be a spastic. A bit simple-minded, perhaps. No, we're sorry, but he just won't go. But that's where the big mistake is made. Spastic, a normal, intelligent person in a disobedient body. But there is a place for spastics, and there's one clocking in at hunting aircraft. He's different from his friends, but they like him. He's kept his job for 2 years now, and he's done it well, on high-precision work, of the kind where you just can't make mistakes. And here's another large firm in the aircraft industry that employs spastics. Sir George Doughty, chairman of the Doughty Group, has this to say.
I have for many years been interested in the employment of the disabled, and for 10 years I've been chairman of our local disablement committee. Some 12 months ago, Mr. Hargraves of the Spastic Society came along to talk to us about his particular interests, and we were so impressed with what he had to say that we were quite willing to take on spastics on trial to see how they fitted in with factory life. The result was that we employed 2 of these people, and they performed so well that we employed 2 others. And I can say now, from the experience we've had, that we should be most happy to employ more spastic cases when they are made available to us.
Let's see who else has given jobs to spastics. Now, Cross and Blackwell have found employment for 3.
Yes, at Cross and Blackwell we have 3 spastics. That's Neil Glencroft in the loading bay.
We've got a spastic at GEC. He's one of our messengers.
We've got 2 spastics at Escott, Nick Buck and Frank Merritt. They're machine assemblers.
That nice telephone operator who greets you at Marmite is a spastic.
Yes, we at Deco Radar have Barbara Baton. She's an assembler in our marine radar department. The ladies at Girton College eat well. They're served by Sheila Barnes. Yes, she's a spastic.
At Murphy we have Peter Rudd. His job is feeding wooden panels into the glue spraying machine. We not only employ 3 at Ticker Press, we've set up a scheme to train spastics to operate air machines in other firms all over the country.
Well, of course, we employ spastics in the London office of the National Spastic Society. Anne Plummer is Chief Records Clerk in our Employment Department.
And there are many more examples. Little names, big names. Kodak, Marconi, Pilkington Glass, Tesco Stores, Lucas, Sketchley Cleaners, Remploy, Naffy, Ferranti, and scores of others. And at Reading University, there's an assistant cook who's a spastic. It's his first job, and he got it at the age of 40. He'd spent more than 20 years in mental hospitals. Not because he's mentally defective, but because there was nowhere else for him to live. Success for a spastic depends very largely on the analysis of his abilities made for you by the National Spastic Society. You know a great deal about a spastic before you take him on. Failure for a spastic is much worse than for anyone else. He just can't afford to fail, if only because an unfortunate experience with one spastic might discourage employers from taking on another. It simply has got to work. The Society's method of selecting spastics for jobs is extremely strict, and the training of them often goes on for a very long time. Let's see what Tony Ellis had to go through. The selection began at school, after years of training to reduce his handicap. Now he's ready to leave.
Well now, Tony, you've done very well at school. I want you to give Mrs. Wynne a chance to assess your suitability for employment. All right?
Yes. I see you've reached O-level in several subjects, Tony. What would you like to do when you leave school?
My dad is an engineer, and I would like that sort of work.
It's going to be rather difficult for you with those hands, Tony. He's done very good work in the wood and metalwork department and has a good sense of design, but he's rather slow.
Yes.
Still, you've got his reports, and he does try hard.
Yes, I think it would be a good idea if you came along to one of our assessment courses, Tony, and we can have some better idea of what you're able to do.
Thank you, Mrs. Wynne. Thank you.
Doesn't look too promising, does he? But a fortnight at the Society's assessment course will soon show up his possibilities. Let's see what else lies in front of him. Miss Morgan, the Society's employment officer, runs these courses.
We're very pleased that you've been able to come along this morning, Colonel Jefferson, to give us all a talk about the new sheltered workshop the Society is planning to build, because we've been talking quite a lot about work this week, work of all types, work in ordinary employment, in sheltered employment, and in work centres, and even at home.
Can you tell me, Colonel Jefferson, what hours you are asking your employees to work?
The normal hours will be from 8 to 5, but they may be altered at the local authority's request and traffic conditions.
Do you think there'll be room for me in the sheltered workshop?
I hope so. That will depend on the result of this course. As you know, this assessment course is held to determine whether you will be fit for sheltered workshop, open employment in industry, or in a work centre or at home.
Oh, but Colonel Jefferson, does that mean to say if I was to go to a sheltered workshop, I should be there for the rest of my life?
Oh, no, indeed. You may well go to Sherard's, who will train you in engineering for open industry. Or you may come to my sheltered workshop, where I will train you for open industry, but it may take a little longer.
I hope you've enjoyed this fortnight, Tony.
Yes, I have.
You want to do engineering, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Not quite as easy to get a job as you may imagine, you know. But Mr. Allman wants to run through some of the practical work with you again, just to see how you manage the more fiddly jobs.
Yes. Now, you've done both of these before, Tony, and they're quite straightforward. Firstly, I want you to put the nut and the 3 washers onto the bolt. Fine, thank you. Secondly, a bit more difficult, I want you to put the terminals onto the nuts and bolts, the black ones on one side, the red ones on the other side. Right? You know how to do it.
Thank you.
Would you mind coming in for a minute, Mrs. Wynne? Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tony.
That's fine, Tony. You've tried very hard, but you're still a bit slow, aren't you?
Yes.
I'll be having another chat with you later on, but in the meantime, I expect you'd like to go and join the others.
Thank you.
Good.
Goodbye, Tony.
Bye-bye.
You've just been having a chat with Tony, Mrs. Wynne. He's very keen, but he's not really ready for a job as he is he, Mr. Ormond?
No, I don't think I could place him as he is at the present. I think he needs special training. How do you feel, Mrs. Wynne?
Yes, he does need training. He's very immature in his behaviour as well. After all, he's only just left school. I think he should go to Sherard's.
Yes, Sherard certainly seems to be the next best move for Tony.
Tony spent months at Sherard's, the Society's training centre, getting used to industrial conditions, clocking in. Regular hours. Different types of work, learning safety precautions. He earned pay, living on a grant from the Ministry of Labour. He worked with more determination than almost any young man of his age. He really wanted a job. And he learned to mix with other people. His progress was discussed regularly with the staff at Sherard's, with Ministry of Labour officers, and the Society's Assistant Employment Officer. And only then was he passed. But what's the result of all this training? Has it done Tony any good? What about that walk of his? It still looks pretty clumsy, doesn't it? But is it really as clumsy as all that? I'd like to satisfy myself with a short test, if Tony will help me.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to rub my shoes in one of these colours and walk down the corridor so that you can see my footsteps. And then I want you to follow me.
Right, sir.
There you are, Tony. Now you have a try. Well done, Tony. He's by no means as clumsy as all that, is he? See for yourself. But how about his hands? Can you use those just as well?
I think so, sir.
Well, we've devised another test to see how he uses them compared with an unhandicapped worker on an assembly job. You ready, Tony?
Right, sir.
Right? Now.
Finished, sir.
Finish it.
Well, Tony is just that little bit slower, but there's not much difference. And he's not so clumsy either. Here's a graph of an earlier test with Tony's the lower green line. And as you can see, there's practically no difference. Nevertheless, some people would say he still looks accident-prone, that he's dangerous. But is he? We've seen how he was trained in safety precautions. Here's the opinion of the industrial medical consultant to Huntley and Palmer's.
In the past few years, we've come to understand a lot more about spastics. Spastics have a remarkable facility for avoiding accidents. They've been taking precautions all their lives because they've had to. Carefulness is instinctive in a spastic, unlike so many other people. Now, could we see that shot that illustrates my point?
Let's do that.
With normal people, accidents are almost always due to some sort of carelessness. If he's bored with his job, a man's attention tends to wander, but not Tony's. He really needs that job. That job is his one chance of establishing himself, proving his human independence. You see what I mean?
I certainly do, Doctor. Thank you very much. So clearly spastics have to go through a very fine screen indeed to get their jobs in the open market of industry. Now, you're a youth employment officer. Do you find there are many more young spastics looking for jobs today?
Oh, yes. You see, we're reaching a peak in the number of normal school leavers. This means, of course, that there's an increased number of handicapped, and among them the number of spastics. Also, more are being trained, and more people seem to be realizing their employment potentialities.
Does the society assist you with advice?
Certainly. Their careers officer can be most useful. All these cases are very difficult indeed, and we welcome any help we can get. And the Society's assessment courses and further education courses are indeed most useful.
Things are tough enough for the Tony Ellises of this world. But what about the others? Those spastics that don't reach the standard for open employment. Are they just abandoned? Not at all. Some of these are at Remploy. And here is a network of workplaces the Society and its local groups have set up where the pace is not so hard. These centres carry out subcontract work for local firms. More and more of these places are being equipped and opened all over the country every year. Take the Ruislip Centre in Middlesex. It was set up for a variety of subcontract work. They do jobs for people like EMI, AEC, Johnson Matthey, the Bell Punch Company, and many others. Then there are the very heavily handicapped. For them, the Society provides work in their own homes, so that they too get that feeling of self-respect that comes from earning something, from feeling still wanted. They can do an excellent job printing these spastics Christmas cards. Dudley Virgo has a specially adapted Adana printing machine. He earns a halfpenny a card. The next time you buy your wife a piece of jewellery, remember it could have been made by Myrna Johnson, who can't use her hands at all. Well, Miss Morgan, I've invited along a number of senior executives of industrial organisations to talk frankly about the problems of employing and finding work for spastics. I don't doubt you know a great many of them.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Summers of Hunting Aircraft has got some comments that might interest you. Mr. Summers, you must have an awful lot of precision engineering work. How do spastics manage to cope with this?
Well, they fit in quite well, so long as you pick the right job for them.
Do you need to take extra precautions to prevent accidents?
Not at all. They're quite careful themselves, but one wouldn't put them on a high-speed cutting machine of any kind. You choose the particular job, the particular machine to suit the individual, and they're quite easy.
Mr. Cooper, as chairman of the General and Municipal Workers' Union, is there a union problem affecting spastics as far as wage rates are concerned?
No, I see no problem at all. We've had similar situations. I mean, men returning from the war and the industrially injured who have to be rehabilitated. There's no real problem in all these cases.
Can the unions themselves do anything to ensure more employment for spastics?
Yes, I think so, and I like this idea of the Spastic Society's induction of work people. And I would think that where there is, in a factory, a representative union or a shop stewards committee, they should be brought into the picture right away, and I think that would help a great deal.
Are they specially liable to be affected by the last in, first out rule?
I don't think so, because they are in a group where I think all will appreciate that they're in specialised forms of employment which wouldn't come under the general rule.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Briggs, Ticker Press takes spastics from the Society for its own training scheme with your ticket labelling machines. How do you find they turn out?
We find they're very excellent employees. In fact, in many cases, they're superior to the unhandicapped.
How would you compare the abilities of spastics, once trained, with those of other handicapped workers?
Well, if they start slow, they soon catch up. And in the end, I think the desire to accomplish something overcomes their initial disabilities. And we find them really excellent employees, and the customers to whom they've gone speak very, very highly of them.
Mr. Stammers, do you find at Ascot water heaters that spastics take a long time to learn any job you give them?
Depends on their disability. If the disability is limited to the legs, say, they can do an assembly operation and learn it and do it as quickly as a normal person. If, however, the handicap is severe, arms, hands, legs, then it does take a long while. But with patience, you can see continuous improvement throughout the period.
Mr. Carter, you already have 3 spastics at Cross and Blackwell. Do you feel in some way that you're doing a favour by employing them?
No, we do not. Spastics do not ask to be favoured in employment, and they don't expect it. Like many other people with disabilities, it's their wish to be treated exactly as normal people.
If you had to reduce staff at any time, would spastics get special consideration?
Well, that is something which fortunately in our case seldom arises, but if it did, we should treat spastics exactly as we would treat any other employee of the company.
As you do, in fact, in every aspect of their relationship with you.
Most certainly.
Mr. Frank, Murphy Radio must have a lot of intricate manual processes. How do spastics succeed in dealing with them?
That does depend, of course, a little on the nature of the disability. In some cases, it makes very little difference at all. In other cases, of course, it could, on very intricate work, make quite a lot of difference.
I believe, Mr. Forbes, at Marmite, you actually employ a spastic as a telephone operator. Now, how does she manage to cope with this quite complicated operation?
Well, although she's only the use of her left hand, she has learnt to operate the switchboard very efficiently, and obviously her rate of operation is slower than the normal person, but on the other hand, it's rather interesting to note that we've had 1 or 2 callers who've complimented us on our receptionist, obviously showing that she must be doing the job very well.
Oh, and she has a particularly pleasant manner or something?
Oh yes, she obviously has a charming personality and voice, which obviously helps.
Mr. Marsh, over and above employment in factories, can you, as director of the British Institute of Management, see ways in which employers can provide work for spastics, perhaps in special outside workshops?
Oh, yes, indeed. The National Spastic Society has got nearly 30 special workshops for spastics all around the country, and these are developing all the time. And this is an excellent opportunity for employers to subcontract work direct to these workshops.
What sort of work can be handed out in this fashion?
By and large, any kind of semi-skilled work requiring a good finished job, for example, simple machine operations, packaging work, stripping down of rejected parts, or touching up of items, and indeed good quality work can be done as long as the time factor is a bit more gentle than is normal in industry.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Marsh. Well, gentlemen, I must say that what you all have to say sounds most encouraging. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Let us hear now from a man who lost his legs in the service of his country. Group Captain Douglas Bader.
All these people ask is to be given the chance to do a job in the same way as you and I, and you can be absolutely sure that in order to show you that they can do it as well as you can, they'll probably do it a great deal better.
Yes, these young people really want a job of work, and we in the society are doing all we can to see that they are carefully assessed and trained. But we need your help. When their training is completed, will there be local firms to offer them the right jobs, jobs that they can do? And will their workmates accept them? These severely handicapped. Will there be enough subcontract work to provide them with full-time, useful occupation? And what about those men and women who are only able to work at home, but are doing a wide variety of really first-class work? Can we help them to market their goods?
A start has been made, but a great deal more has still to be done. The society needs your support if the thousands of spastics in this country are to be given their chance to do an honest job.